I'd like to welcome everyone to another joint program uh, of the Friends of Native Art and the Bill Holm Center. I am Bob Moore. I'm the president of Friends of Native Art, or FONA as we like to call it. I can tell there are a lot of people on the Zoom who are not currently FONA members. If you would like to find out more about FONA and its activities, you can send an email to FONA Seattle, all run together, at gmail.com, and we'll provide you with some information. In particular, people who are not residents of Washington State and people who are full-time students can join FONA for free. So that might get more interesting for some of you. Tonight, I'd like to remind everybody that wherever we are in North America, we are on Indigenous land. And for many of us who are in the Puget Sound region, we are in particular specifically on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people. And we thank them for allowing us to be here tonight. I'm super pleased that tonight we have Christian White as our speaker. I've known Christian for a while. I think I first met him back in, was it 2012, when Rita and I visited Haida for the first time. I hope Christian won't be embarrassed by my saying, in my humble opinion, he's the finest argillite carver working today, but he's much more than that. I once encountered a dealer in Vancouver who expressed the opinion that among the Haida, there were some people who were good argillite carvers and some people who were good wood carvers, but there weren't really any that were both. But Christian definitely is a counterexample to that, because not only is he a spectacular argillite carver, but he's one of the best wood carvers around, particularly doing large-scale totem poles and canoes. He's done a lot of great poles. My personal favorite is the Beaver Story pole that he raised in 2017, and I hope I pronounced this right, Haida. Not right, I guess. On out in Hill on Haida. It's a truly spectacular pole. In terms of his argillite carving, one of the most amazing things about Christian is he was so good, so young. It's mentioned in the biographical information that we have that one of his argillite carvings of Raven Dancer was acquired by the Museum of Anthropology and at UBC for their permanent collection when he was only 22. And Rita and I are fortunate enough to have a very fine carving that he did when he was 23. And you can see, even at that young age, he was just amazing in his carving ability. So at this point, I will turn it over to Bridget Johnson of the Bill Holm Center to do a formal introduction, and then she'll turn it over to Christian.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. That wonderful introduction. Yes, I am Bridget Johnson. I'm the Associate Director of the Bill Holm Center for the Study of Northwest Native Art, and I will be introducing our speaker tonight. But before I get to that, I just want to make sure I want to ask everyone to mute themselves during the presentation and save any questions that you have for the end. The presentation should be about 45 minutes to an hour, leaving us at 30 minutes or so for a Q&A with Christian. But at any time, you can put questions in the chat, and I can be sure to relay those to him during the Q&A portion, but we'll also have opportunities for you to ask questions yourselves. And we can also go back to any specific slides that you'd like to see. And as you all have seen, this presentation will be recorded and shared on the Burke Museum's YouTube page. And I do want to make a special shout out to Katie Bunn-Marcuse's intro to Northwest Coast Art students, Art History 233. Welcome. We're glad you're here. And now it is my honor to introduce our speaker tonight. And I'm going to pull up his presentation. So we have that ready. Yes. Born in 1962 in Haida Archipelago on the Canada's west coast, Kihl'Yahdas carries forward a lineage of Haida artistry and leadership. A descendant of Master Carver Charles Edenshaw, he grew up learning from his grandfather, Jeffrey White, a boat builder, and from his father, Morris White, Chief Idansu of the Eagle Clan of Custa. His mother, Diane, Morris's wife, preserved horticultural, medicinal, and culinary knowledge. Immersed in this cultural foundation, Kihl'Yahdas learned through observation, practice, and family teachings. At 13, under his father's mentorship, he began carving argillite, developing the ambidextrous technique and dedication that enabled him to become a self-supporting artist by 17. His work reflects deep respect for ancestral knowledge, combining inlays and diverse materials across forms and ranging from monumental totem poles and ocean-going canoes to carvings in metal and stone. Committed to supporting others, he continues to mentor emerging artists. At 22, his recognition led the University of British Columbia's Museum of Anthropology to acquire his Raven Dancer sculpture for its permanent collection. And through his art apprenticeship program, the Kihl'Yahdas Society and the Canoe People's House Longhouse Cultural Center, his shadow influences many around the globe. Everyone, please welcome Kihl'Yahdas Christian White.
Yes. Hello. Hadalasis, Tulunkoyasis, Tulungat Kilag. Kihl'Yahdas Hinodikyang, Diawhadagan. Yalas Gustu Dikwalagan. Yakalana Studi Iskagan. Tulungat Kilag. Good evening, everyone. I wish I could see you. But yes, I'm sitting here in Kihl'Yahdas Canoe People's House. It's 21st year that the building has been opened. I built this big traditional house during 2004 and 5. It was I had visioned this building along with my father many years before. Maybe in about 1995, while I carved his chieftainship pole, and he gave me that inspiration to move on getting the timbers for this building. The pole behind me is a story of our own, of our travels on our canoes to Southeast Alaska, to Ketchikan, and at the time, and to Heidelberg, Alaska. And so I've always told the young people that I work with, we can create our own stories, our own history. So I'm always looking into the future. I'm always being creative to come up with these ideas for projects and just to move our people ahead in the arts. there's so many different parts to the arts, really. There is the visual arts, of course, carving in cedar and carving in, alder, carving in all the different woods, and also carving in argillite, silver, gold, copper. But then there's also the performing arts, dancing, singing, and acting, and storytelling. So all of these come together here at Kihl'Yahdas Canoe People's House. Right now, for instance, I have a number of boxes that are being painted. I'm designing the boxes, and then my youth apprentices are painting them. And it's something I've done over the last several years, is even back as far as 1999, I started making boxes to honor our ancestors for the repatriation. The ancestors' remains being brought back from various museums across North America. And I thought that would be the best way to honor them, was through making the traditional cedar boxes. And so now I have more time to spend time on the design part of it, the painting part of it. So I'm quite happy I'm in that time of life right now where I can spend more time on the design of those particular objects. So yes, we're going to look at a number of slides over the next while. It just shows more about what we've been working on in the past few years. And so I've, of course, like in the last 26 years, I've been teaching, since actually 1999, I've been teaching the younger generation. I've looked for funding so I can pay them, and I could have dedicated apprentices for several months out of the year. And of course, I had to work on my own art during the same time, during the evenings, on the weekends, to support my family and to pay the bills. But I've always managed to do that. I've always managed to pull it off. And now here at Kihl'Yahdas, we have quite a large collection of artwork that we've created over the last 26 years. So, yes. I think it has been our, more than anything, really, it's been the art, the song and dance that has held us close to our culture. And when I was carving when I was younger, that's how I felt, really. I said, I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part by carving, by being a creative person, and by just moving ahead and proving, well, to myself, and proving that what I did was relevant and viable, and I made the most of it, and I'm quite satisfied with the way things have gone, and I believe I've inspired the younger generation for several decades already now, and so I think, yeah, so I'm very grateful that some of them have followed in my footsteps. And, as they mature into their artistic practices, they create their own style within the style. All of my apprentices have been of Haida descent. They're either from this village or from Kihl'Yahdas, or they've grown up in other communities, Prince Rupert, Terrace, Ottawa, Vancouver, many different places they've grown up. But when they return here, this becomes their home. Their, it's they become immersed into the Haida culture, and so yes, Waadaana. That means at this moment. My name, Kihl'Yahdas. It's a name that I took on when I raised my frontal pole in front of Kihl'Yahdas, the Aatlan crest pole. And I took the name Kihl'Yahdas. It means true voice. And so what I say is true. I was brought up with my parents, my grandfather, and we also visited many elders as I was growing up. And also later on in life, I became a student in Hodkill, the Haida language, back in 1998, I believe. And my wife and I both became proficient in Hodkill. And I think she's a little bit more proficient than I am. But it's been I encourage other people to do that also, to take a challenge, and move on it. Don't just think about it. You have to do it. If it comes to your mind, do it. And that's what I've done for most of my life. I've challenged myself to do what I've done. Carving my father's chieftainship totem pole, carving my grandfather's memorial pole, my commissions for the Aatlan, the solstice pole there at Aatlan, known as Toe Hill, taking on 8 students at the drop of a hat, and being asked to finish the pole in 6 months. What would take a normal person a year to carve at least. I took on that with my brother, who's an excellent carver, Dirk, and my son Vernon, and plus the 8 students, and the ones that joined us in the last couple of weeks. I think we work better under pressure. Definitely have that pressure towards the end, but I always get it done in time. I always, and there's time to spare for preparations. I always use my time very wisely. The commission I got from the Council of the Haida Nation for the peace pole with the Heiltsuk Nation, the Bella Bella people. I was very grateful to receive that commission, as I'd become close with the Heiltsuk people. I have several friends that live there and in their community, and I've attended many potlatches there, inspired by the way they carry their culture. And so it was a good fit. After all, I had taken my canoes there on more than one occasion to visit them. And the last time was in 2014. The year before, we re-verified our peace treaty with the Heiltsuk people, the Haida Nation did with the Heiltsuk Nation. A peace treaty we had made way back in 1856. And so we still support each other. And the totem pole that went up in 2019, it was just a gift from the Haida Nation. So it was a good fit for me to go there and to take our dance group and share our culture with them. So, and then our frontal pole, years and months in planning and carving. And then all that goes along with a potlatch, mask carving, headdresses, robes, gifts, many feast bowls, And so, of course, this takes a lot of persistent effort. And I always encourage my apprentices to excel in what they do, to push themselves a little harder, and I believe they do. They do find their strengths, and they're able to carry on. So we come to the point of now. When I have a few students work with me, we're preparing for the new year. We're preparing for projects, to finish products we started last year, and unveil them, and bring new projects to the beginning stages, and the designing and the work. So the work is carrying on, and in the meantime, I'm working on my own individual artworks in jewelry and sculpture in argillite, jewelry in silver and gold, and the work. It's always inspiring, really, for me, and it's a drive that I have to carry on. And yes, I wish I could see the pictures and I could talk about some of the photos. I'm without my assistant right now, and she's off island. And okay, so the first photo you see, I'm standing in front of Kihl'Yahdas with the Yakulanus pole. The pole is 5 feet wide, and it stands 53 foot 8 inches above ground. And there's another over 10 feet in the ground. It's held in place by a few tons of stone. So it's something that I've planned years ago. The crest on the bottom, there's a grizzly bear. It's one of my main crests, the grizzly bear, and then many other crests of our family above there. The next shot is my carving shed. My brothers and I own it. It was built by my late father. Well, we helped him build it. And I most recently renovated it, starting around 2021, and then 2022. So we put a new roof on it, and it's a very beautiful, large building to work on. The full-size canoe I'm standing by, Kihl'Yahdas, the beloved canoe. As we're carving on it, we talked about it being a war canoe. But I said, we don't go to war anymore. So I want to call it the beloved canoe. And also I was working, I had 8 students working with me on there for 2 years, 5 months during each year, and then many other apprentices. And they helped me a lot and did a fine job. As we moved ahead on the project, we became more of a team. Everybody became working together, and so it was great. And that's what it's about too. It's the process of carving on a monumental totem pole. It's the experience, the methodology, the step-by-step methods that we take when we're working on these projects to keep them each side even, and to try to make it as perfect as we can. And working together on steaming the canoe, we had to gather rocks and firewood, and to steam the canoe with the hot rocks and the water in the canoe, and to stretch it out wider. So it took a lot of teamwork. At first, we were running into each other, and then after a while, we start flowing. We start flowing together, and then it worked a lot better. I I do it by example. I lead by example, and hopefully the youth will follow. Could change the pictures, Bob. Yes. Yeah, so this is outside, this is behind Kihl'Yahdas, and then outside the carving shed. And we're actually standing around, that's the bottom end of the large frontal pole. So this was taken probably in, I'd say, I'm not sure exactly. It could have been early 2022. Yeah, maybe the springtime of 2022 when this was taken. So it was a while before we had the pole raising. Yes. So you can see some of the family members there. Yeah. So yeah, we can move on to the next picture. So this here is a chest. I had actually made this chest back in around 2006. I had several apprentices here working with me, and we're making chests for the repatriation. And but you know, of course, we made more than we needed, and so I had several of these chests left over, but I had never painted it, and I decided that one of my friends from Bella Bella, she's from Bella Bella, her husband's from Bella Bella, she's originally from the Nuu-chah-nulth people, and from the west coast of Vancouver, near Port Alberni, Ahousaht, I believe. And so she ordered it off me, and so I took that on, and I painted it along with my apprentices. I drew up the designs and transferred the designs onto the chest, and we painted it, and sent it down to them for their potlatch. And so I'm just inside my Kihl'Yahdas after I completed painting it. And so this was probably about maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. And yeah, so you could see inside my building a bit there. And then the other picture on the left is the potlatch goods their family brought in to add to the treasures of the chief Dladliasila from the Helchik people. And so it was great to see that because it helped me, it informed me in how we can do our rituals here too. And one part of the family bringing in things to contribute in a ceremonial way. And so I learned a lot by going to other potlatches and other cultures too. You know, very similar, but we have our differences too with the ceremonial part of it. But I like to incorporate many of those things within our Haida culture. And these chests, these types of chests were treasure boxes. They were used to store ceremonial regalia, robes and aprons and headdresses and all of that, and tunics, ceremonial bowls and spoons, and all of that kind of potlatch goods. My grandmother's name is Washash Gidak, which means potlatch goods in the Haida language. And so this that would be something. This pile would be in our language would be called Washash Gidak, the potlatch goods that are distributed at a potlatch. So it kind of signifies the high ranking of the person who has that name. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. Okay, here's another shot of in the canoe house, the Haida canoe totem and design shed, and you could see a number of paddles piled up there, and then a couple of canoe has been worked on, and the other canoes on the side there, hanging from the ceiling and against the wall, have been on many journeys to Alaska and down the coast to Bella Bella. And so you can see that's a very wonderful space to work in. And then there's another shot of Kihl'Yahdas, the front of my canoe people's house, and we're standing there with my family, part of the dance group, and a couple of friends, close friends. And so this my building would have been one of the larger houses back in the old days. This it's 50 feet wide and 60 feet long. Not the largest of the Haida houses, but one of the largest, one of the larger ones. Those beams up the top are 60 feet, over 60 feet long, 65 feet, I guess. And yes, like I said before, the buildings was made during 2004 and 5. I opened up the doors in May of 1st of 2005, and we this pole behind me in here, this was raised on the day of the house opening, when I gave it the name Kihl'Yahdas. And the pole's a story of one of our adventures, our journeys to Alaska. So you could see yes, all our regalia that we're wearing. It was all probably, a lot of it was made here in Kihl'Yahdas. Yes, and the drums. So, okay, we'll change the photo. Change put the next slide on. Okay, so here, this is just last summer, probably around the end of August or so. Standing next to Corey Bullpit. This is in the carving shed, Haida Canoe Totem and Design carving shed. And so we're standing by a cedar, a beautiful piece of cedar that we've been working on for quite some time at this point, preparing it, carving it, shaping it into a horizontal killer whale, what we call manda. And so we're talking about the designs that are going on in the pole. So Corey, he returns here once or twice a year. He resides in Vancouver. He was raised in Ladner, but he was born here on Haida Gwaii to Haida parents, but he was put up for adoption as a baby. And so he grew up in the Langley area of Vancouver. And when he was 18 years old, he returned to Masset. And I was working on shaping my beams out for my longhouse. And he came by and he became one of my first apprentices, along with 3 others. So my son Vernon, and then Stephen and Alan. So it was great having those first 4 to work with for several months each year for the next 3 years. And we created a lot, and each one of them is is quite accomplished in the work that they do. So yeah, you can see we're in the totem pole carving side of the shed there, and you'll see a couple of yellow cedar blanks. Those will be totem poles at some point. Yeah. So we'll change this slide. Okay, yes, there's the same piece. Corey and I were just talking around the killer whale Manda. It's actually over 30 feet long, and it's all painted at this time. You can see a little bit of the paint going on the pole in the next picture, and a little bit of carving being still done. And then there'll be fins added onto the back of the killer whale as the final part of it when we put it into place. I'll tell a little bit of story about this sculpture where I was kind of inspired. I had attended a totem pole raising out on an island. The village there was called Haida. It's in Skidegate Inlet, and not too far from Skidegate, the southern part of Graham Island, and a little island there. And there was a totem pole that I didn't carve the totem pole. Friends of mine had carved the totem pole, and we're waiting for everything to start. And I saw these children playing on the stump. The stump was covered with bushes, all kinds of berry bushes on there, and they were just having fun up there. And then I kind of looked down towards the front and the side there, and I looked at and I could see carving on the stump. I said, this isn't a stump. This is a Manda sculpture. So the children were playing on a sculpture that had been carved 150 years before. And so then I went back after the pole raising. We went to the celebration in the Skidegate Hall, and then so anyways, that thought just stuck in my mind, and I decided to look in the old photographs in Haida Monumental Art by George MacDonald, and I looked under Haida, and sure enough, the Manda sculpture was there. As far as I know, Manda just means sculpture or a memorial sculpture, and so I said, And then when I saw this log being delivered last summer to my carving shed, then I said, yes, this is going to be our Manda. And we'll place that over on the ocean side across from Kihl'Yahdas to honor my sister and my aunt and other family members that have passed on. And so the inspiration, and then we move on the inspiration. Sometimes inspirations take a long time, but we still move ahead on them, such as the totem pole you see laying there next to the Manda. It's been laying there for over 10 years, and this year it will be raised finally, also in a wilderness area. So persistence pays off. That's the way I would say it. A lot of persistence to just move things forward. Okay, so yeah, and that's Nagatsi, our Shiba Inu, my granddogger. It was supposed to be my daughter's dog, but I think Chinny, grandfather, has myself has watched the dog a lot more. So it's a great companion to take me on walks. We walk through the forest on the beaches every day. And it's always great to hear the ravens and the eagles and all the other sights that we see along the way. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. This is the pole that I'm talking about, bringing to the west coast of Haida Gwaii to an ancient village called Kihl'Yahdas. Kihl'Yahdas was occupied over close to 200 years ago. And my ancestors' traditional territory, the West Coast, from Tulung all the way down to Clikas, Klidu, Hua, and even further. It's in the northwest part of Haida on what's known as Graham Island. And one of my uncles told me a story while we're preparing the canoes to travel to Bella Bella. And we're making paddles, repairing the canoes, and the totem pole was partially started there. And I had it all designed, and we were I had taken a break from carving on it, but he said, I told him about where I wanted to bring it to. I wanted to bring it out to the West Coast. And he said, in 1960, I was with Uncle Willis, and we were fishing on the West Coast on his seiner, on a seine boat, fishing for salmon. And we went into an area, a little bay, and there was a totem pole standing there at the village of Klidu. And so he still remembered that from 1960 and then 2014 when he told me the story. And I said, in my own mind, I said, I've got to go to this village. I've got to go and explore there. So a couple of years later, I took my fishing boat out, and then we found the village. It took me a while to when I went through it, I said, if I was going to build a village, this would be where it would be. Very beautiful, natural sculptures in the stone, and very inspiring to be out there. Of course, I was out there when it was calm, but I went to, and I've been out there more times since then. And it's one thing to think about being out in these areas, but it was almost like a fantasy for many years, for almost generations, decades, of not being able to get out there. We never had the mobility after we lost our fleet of seiners. We became landlubbers here for a while, and the only thing that my father had left was his culture. And so I got brought up watching him carve, but we had those stories. We had those stories, and that's a story that's told on this totem pole. The story, it's not these lower figures, but on the upper figures of this 50-foot totem pole, there is the stories of the river, and on the West Coast, the female spirit, Anangjat, and then her son, Sungsanaway, and her husband, Adigang, and the watchman. So it's great to, even from a story that was told to me when I was 12 years old, and I carved it when I was, I don't know, 40 something or 50. I'm getting old, but 2014 and 2013, 2014 when I carved it. And so those stories, they could come back. They come back, and they could be put back into the artwork. The stories have been what's inspired me. The imagination, because the way my elders told me the stories were, they left a lot to the imagination, but I had it in my mind how places looked already. And then when I traveled out there, it was almost like I was there before. It's like deja vu. So it's great. So this on this figure is a grizzly bear with a long tongue, and above there's a two-fin killer whale. But then the other figures, the Creek woman, her son Sungsanaway, and Adigang on the top there. So okay, we can move ahead to the next photo. So this is my argillite sculpture. I started carving argillite way back in the mid-70s almost. Some of my first pieces, and probably my first sculpture by the time, before 1980. I think I did some totem poles even before then. And selling them, I found that I could I carved medallions, earrings, and I was able to make a livelihood at a young age. We had tourists that came here. We had my father had kind of moved on to carving silver and gold, and he had local people that wanted bracelets, medallions, earrings, rings, and so he made a good livelihood doing that. But I stuck with the argillite for the most part, and with the argillite, I felt I had a lot of freedom to carve what I could, use my imagination. My father always encouraged me to, to learn the traditional art forms, but to never really directly copy, but always kind of put myself into it. And that's the same thing I teach my young people too, is, learn our traditional arts, but also carve it in your own style. So this is argillite. It's only found on part of the Sleeping Beauty mountain range, up a valley, along a river, and then up along the mountainside. There's a quarry owned by the Kihl'Yahdas Haida. It's called a Black Slate Reserve. And it's we travel up there with our pack boards and our saws and our chisels and wedges, and we take these large chunks of stone out of the side of the cliff, really the side of the mountain, and we cut it with our saws into a manageable piece, sometimes carrying 100 or more pounds. And most of the time you're on one leg, coming down the hill. It's an expedition. It's a trial of life. I've come to believe there's no trail. And after my last trip there, it's so easy to get off the trail and just get lost for a while. But fortunately, I've never had any serious mishaps. So the argillite, this would have been, like one of my slightly larger pieces. They're pieces I turn in my hands, like probably tens of thousands of times, really, carving each line over and over. Like I start off by cutting it out with a hacksaw. Like I drill through areas with the electric drill, and then I cut it out with a hacksaw, and then from there I use a file, rasps and files to shape it, and then after a while it's just a chisel. Chisels, some woodworking chisels, but then also some chisels that I handmade out of chainsaw files. I've made my own tools since I started way back, and I've also made tools for other people, encouraging them to learn how to carve. And so this is pieces. The photo is taken outside my argillite carving studio, and it's at by my home. So this is the Wasco. The Wasco is a sea wolf, half sea monster, I guess, a wolf sea monster. And in this scene, it's depicted battling against the killer whales. So, there's many different episodes I could refer to in with these designs, but this is one of the episodes that I am inspired to do. So I've got fossilized ivory, mother of pearl, abalone shell, and catlinite inlay in this piece. Yeah. You can move ahead to the next one. So this is the launch of the Kihl'Yahdas. That's to the right, and Hoots Kihl'Yah is on the left. Hoots Kihl'Yah is a fiberglass replica of one of our other canoes that my father made. We call Eagle Beak. Kihl'Yahdas. So Kihl'Yahdas, we have on board, we have all the students that work with me, apprentices, and a couple of family members. But we have I think there's 19 of us on there. The canoe itself is 52 feet long. The Hoots Kihl'Yahda is about 42 feet. So it's been very difficult for our people. It's been heart-wrenching for many generations to be in our village here at the looking over Masset Sound on the northern end of Haida. All my life, I've seen barge loads and barge loads of logging boats, or log barges going out. Each one carrying 17,000 cubic meters of wood. That's like 17,000 telephone poles. But a big canoe like this would be about 12 cubic meters of wood. 12 or more. 12 to 16 cubic meters of wood, I'm not sure exactly. But the most productive, the biggest cedars have been taken. There is still big cedars out there, but they're very isolated. This particular tree, I was called to go look in an area that had been put aside as a cedar reserve, and even though there was no culturally modified trees there, they wanted to preserve some in this particular area. So I walked through the stand of trees, and then I was almost standing next to this when I looked over. I said, "Oh, this is a pretty good sized tree." And I asked my cousin, Jim Hart, I said, "Is this something you'd be interested in?" And, just to give him the first chance after. There's one not too far away from there. And that one was cut down to maybe 4 sections. And so it was. But other than that, it was quite solid. Of course, that takes a lot of time to prepare and to raise the money to do it. So finally, after several years, I was able to raise the money and to get the support, and then we launched it in August 24th of 2024. So it was a great celebration. Many people attended, and this is the launchings. I could probably tell stories all night about the canoes, but we'll move on to the next one. So this painting on here, I had started the design of the painting. I had taken the template off the canoe. We're coming down to the last couple of days, or the last 4 days, I think it was, before the launching of the canoe. Just the last few days. And so I had the templates laying here in Kihl'Yahdas on the floor. And my nephew, Corey Bulpit, talk 8 Aya, his Haida name. He was named at one of my potlatches. And I said, can you help me out to do this design? I said, this is what I want here. This is what I want there. And he went at it. He just drew it all up. And then I came back in and I said, oh, move this over here a little bit. Move that over here. And then he finished it. And I said, yes. And by then we had the canoe ready to paint. And we laid it on there and we traced it on. And then the whole crew came in. All the painters came in and they got to work. They were only allowed to paint if they're experts. They had to be mostly excellent painters. And so I made sure, my wife made sure about that. And so everyone that painted on there was excellent. Okay, yeah, and we textured the surface while we're waiting for the design also. Move on to the next one. Okay, so this is this photo here. I'm wearing my regalia. It's woven Naheen regalia. My leggings and headband are made by Sherry Lightbound, also known as Sherry Dick, one of my relatives here. And and then the apron is woven by Evelyn Vanderhoop, and the wristbands made by Willie White, Simshan weaver. I remember my tunic was made by Auntie Joyce Alexander. Yes. I'm standing in front of a mortuary pole in Skungwai, known as Ninstance, World Heritage UNESCO site. That village was vacated over probably close to 175 years ago. And then when people all moved to at least over 160, I think, people moved to Skidegate mainly. So this why I stood beside this pole. It's a killer whale. It's a two-fin killer whale, which is one of our family crests of the Yakulanas. There's other families that have that crest, the Toslanas and the Kagials Kagaway, all raven branches of the Haida Nation. So yeah, about a year after this, we were there. There was a big windstorm, and it took down a lot of those trees. Luckily, none of the old monuments were taken down. Underneath the stumps of the trees, they found treasures. They found a labret and other things. They found an argillite carving. And most recently, I've heard they found dog remains in one of the house pits. And the dog remains were, they tested them and they found they had a diet high in halibut and mussels. Yeah. So several years ago, about 10 years ago, my wife and I had the honor and pleasure to work as watchmen in Skangwai for a summer, and to guide tourists, visitors through the ancient village site and talk about the totem poles and history of this site. I remember Robin Wright and Evelyn and Vanderhoop and others were there one of the trips. And so afterwards, we our dance group we decided to take a charter down there and go there on our own as visitors. And so this is one of the days. So there was other dance group members there also, but I don't know, just I'm in this photograph. So yeah, so it's been so like many times we'd have visitors here to Masset, and they said, "Oh, we just got back from Skangwai," and I said, "Yeah, that's nice," because at that time I had never been there, and now I have been there several times, and also in the north here we have several village sites, ancient villages that we're more closely related to, that I always go to every summer, and I like to tell the history to the students. That's what we've done for the last couple of summers, is travel to the west coast and the northern part here also to visit the ancient village sites. So yes, I think this might be the last slide. Yes.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Christian. We can go ahead and have start with some Q&A. Yes, applause all around. That was wonderful. I did get a couple questions, but if anyone would like to use the hand raise feature, ooh, lots of claps. Feel free, and you can go ahead, use the hand raise and unmute yourself, or I can go ahead and share a few of the questions that I got in the chat.
Yes.
Okay.
That means I'm always ready.
And I'll go back to the right. Oh, Steve and Mimi.
Yes, I was wondering, how do you trace the design onto the canoe? What method do you use for that tracing?
Well, nowadays, I take a roll of tracing paper. Well, basically, so that's what I did was I took a roll of tracing paper, I laid it out on the side of the canoe where the design's going to be, and then I just traced around the canoe to see what kind of space we have there. Then I took that back into the longhouse, and I have these templates, ovoid templates that my father had made way back in the mid 80s. And I still use those templates. I used them on this totem pole up here for these ovoids on the totem pole. I've used them on the canoes. I've used them on all the totem poles, just to kind of bring him a little bit of his memory into the modern times. So what I did was we had the paper laid out on the floor in here, and then Corey had one of the younger students working with him. I had started laying it out. I did the main eye on it for the canoe, and then from there, I said, well, this is what's going here, this is what's going there, and then I let him go at it. And so then when I came back in, he had the design all perfected for the bow of the canoe. And then so I took that out and put that on the canoe, and had my other apprentices trace it on. Because what we do is we leave a lot of graphite on the paper. So in the old days, what they would have done really is they would have the templates made out of cedar bark. The cedar bark, the ovoid shapes, and they'd use measuring sticks to measure, to find out things. That's how they measured it with sticks, and also hands, the width of a hand. They had many different ways to draw it on with charcoal, and so nowadays we use pencils, graphite pencils. But that's a foolproof way of doing it. And then, of course, we're drawing it on with heavy graphite on one side, and when we flip it to the other side, that graphite's on the other side of the paper, and so then we trace it on again. And so, in a way, it's a learning method too, because the students, they learn to go over these lines over and over, and it kind of creates a muscle memory. The muscle memory of just following through the line, drawing it on, and they get used to that. They get used to drawing the ovoid shapes, the U shapes, the split shapes. All the U shapes are, they're all compound shapes that they get used to drawing it. Repetition is one of the tried and true methods of learning. And so I hope I answered your question. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Dawa-san. Somebody else's turn.
Yeah, I was really impressed by the size of the manda you created. The only manda I've seen before is perhaps the only remaining identifiable carving at Tanu, and it's only about 5 feet long. So what inspired you to make such a monumental one? Were there other historic ones of that size?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, well, I just couldn't. Yeah, I don't know. I was inspired to do that. It was just it was kind of a whim, I guess. When you look at it from the end, it doesn't look that big. Like when you look at it but when you're like, I don't even know how it's going to look until after we put it into place. I had it outside for a while too, and we had just rolled it upright, and then we rolled it into the carving shed on rollers. So I think we have this thing that's called "Go Big or Go Home." And of course, I carved and raised the largest totem pole on Haida, and also the canoe. And my house is quite big too, so so it's probably the largest one in existence right now, anyways. So it just I don't know. I was just inspired at the moment, really, to do it, and like the one I looked at probably was 10 feet long, but I said, well, I could do something bigger. Yeah. So yeah, it's just an inspiration, and because nobody has really done it, I know there used to be one in front of the Burke Museum by Bill Holm. And of course, that was inspired by Amanda that was up in Aatlan, I think. Aatlan, of the Haida village known as Haukan, but Aatlan, which means Cod Bay on Long Island in southeast Alaska, one of the Haida villages. And it was in front of the old Burke Museum for many years. It became the emblem of the Burke Museum. And so that was Amanda. And there's several others in many different villages. And so, like what I do is to inspire people, inspire other people, and challenge them too, to challenge them to come up with something. A challenge is an opportunity. And so that's the way I look at it. Yeah. Oh, go on, next question, please.
Yeah, do you have a difference when you approach wood and argillite? How do you approach them? I'm assuming they're different in the different materials.
Yes, well, I work in a whole different studio. With my argillite, it's a lot more private. With my totem poles, it's, I have numbers of people around me. The boxes are kind of more private too. I'm doing the designs. I might have one or two people working with me. Of course, it's, all designing really. And it's a lot different in each medium for sure. And there's different approaches to the designing. Like when I'm working on argillite sculptures, I sometimes, like, I'll take this argillite piece and I'll lay it right on the page and trace around it, and then I'll on different angles, and then I'll just draw. I'll draw designs randomly in there, and to see what fits into that shape. And so that's one of my methods to do it. Sometimes I'll draw right on the stone itself, and then I'll start. And then sometimes I'm just stuck, and I'll start filing away. I'll start smoothing it down until it comes to me. It's really sometimes it'll just flow right out, and other times it kind of goes along more slowly, kind of a step-by-step method. Hoa, we'll go on to the next one.
So, Christian, in my class, we've been looking at a number of talented artists and cultural leaders like yourself and Robert Davidson and many others from the Kwakwaka'wakw and Tlingit communities, and talking a little bit about, well, wondering really what it is like to balance the sort of capitalist commercial world that you need to engage in to bring in an income with the cultural context that so many of your pieces, call for and respond to. And so, I know you've worked with many galleries and many museums, and I just wondered if you had any thoughts on, what that's like for you.
Yes, of course. For much of my life, I've, it was hand to mouth. It was hand to mouth. I'd be like, I lived in Victoria for a while, and back in the mid '80s, and I had bills to pay. I had even when I lived back at home, I had bills to pay. But so I lived there for 4 years, so every month I had to pay bills. My friends and I, we had an office space where we worked in. So it was about the money, really. It was about making money, and I found that I was quite proficient at that, and quite proficient on spending it too. So I've always been kind of overly generous, and so anyways, from there, and then I got wind of what my father was working on, and I started returning every few months. I would return and help him work on the canoes and build the carving shed. And, I guess over that time period, I started realizing there was more to it than, money, and making money. And it was the cultural part of it. And so, I helped him out. And then we went on journeys on the canoe. In 1989, we traveled to the Yukon River. We traveled up to Heidelberg, Alaska, just going over the open ocean in the canoe. I was the steersman and the seal hunter at the time, and it was quite an adventure, and going through, big swells out there. And it was, and then the further I went through life, though, I realized that there was more to it than just the money making. I carved my father the totem pole, so I had to survive all the way through there too. I still had to make a living while carving on the pole, and I managed to do that. So I was very grateful and blessed for being able to get decent prices for my work, and being able to support myself through the whole process of doing a cultural piece, which is very difficult. It's a very difficult, it's not easy. It's not easy. Otherwise, you would see a lot more totem poles here. So it is a difficult endeavor to do, and but it can be done. And I proved that it can be done, and it marked the day in history. But do what you have in your mind, and it's a challenge to yourself, really. And and from that moment on, then I became a part of a dance group, and we carried that out for years and years, and we still carry that on, that meeting every week to sing and to bring our children up with that in their lives, and then building my own traditional house, and putting a year's worth of work in with no pay, really, but to own something like this, it's something that, and also being in a couple of other shows on the side there too, that I was working on. So it's a multi-layered life, and it's a balancing act, and also being like I say to the youth, step up and step forward and step up, because there's so much to be done in our communities. It's not a boring place. There's so much to be done on different boards. The repatriation committee, the cultural committee, the language committee, and other local endeavors that are going on. There's a lot of room for people to sit on those boards and to become a part of it. And it is a challenge, but it gives a person a full life, and a lot of meaning in our lives. And I know it's given me a lot of meaning, a lot of, and of course, we have our struggles too. We have, I was brought up in with a lot of struggles, personal struggles, and but I've managed to overcome a lot of it. I've managed to mature and to just move on into the future. And I look forward to every day to create something, to take it another step closer. I'm not but at the same time, I like to sit back and relax and enjoy the land and the waters, and just take a moment, to enjoy it all, because I believe I live in the most beautiful place on earth. There's always calmness between the storms, and even the storms I find beautiful. I go out and I look at those huge waves going by, and I'm fascinated by that, to see them splashing off the rocks, to see the trees bending over, and the rain coming sideways. It's all to me, it's all powerful. The powerful supernatural beings that surround our islands, that are underneath in our forests and our mountains, our rivers, our headlands, our oceans. Yeah, so it's all wonderful. Yes. Oh, Any more questions
I,
before
I
we run
have
out of time?
I have one. I've read that the argillite is a soft stone when it's taken from the ground and that it hardens over time. And I wondered how soft is soft really? Do you have to carve it differently than if you were working on some other kind of stone? Do you need different tools or what?
Yes, it's slightly softer when we first get it, but it's it's a lot harder than soapstone, for instance. Um, we can use I got a fresh, brand new saw from the store, like a wood cutting saw, and I could saw. It's probably like close to like limestone or something like that. Like in Europe, I mean in Egypt, they used a lot of limestone for these beautiful monuments of the Sphinx and all that. You know, um, so it's not too much harder than that or softer than that. Um, so I can use a chisel. I use engravers. A lot of my tools, when I get down to the finer work, my tools are more like the same as engraving tools that are used on silver carving. And so, I use rasps and files. Um, you know, uh, like it's a bit harder than soapstone for sure, and it takes detail a lot better. Um, yes, the stone itself, when I quarry it, when I harvest it, I guess, or quarry it and carry it down, I put it into a very cold, dry place. Not very cold, but a dry, cool place. I keep it out of the wind, the sun, and I let it season for a long time. So my carving shop is actually the front part of my carving shop is the perfect location for that, and there's no heat in there, and it's just in the shade, and I just cover it up with some blankets and just let it sit there in a corner. And also what I do is I cut it into the size pieces I want to use that I could make useful, and that kind of relieves any stress on the stone. I have several pieces right in my shop, and they've been seasoning a bit more after that initial few months. And so it does get slightly harder and everything, but I'd rather have it fully cured before I work on it. And then I won't have any mishaps. But it does, it's something that our people were drawn to, hundreds of years ago for ceremonial objects, amulets, and also small staffs, and then pipes, ceremonial smoking pipes. And then it developed into the trade items that we see, the Euro-centric pieces. Yeah, I found that actually very interesting to see those old Euro whaling days, the whaling days pieces, and other pieces. And then it kind of went back when we kind of realized our society was becoming overcome with the missionaries, and we're having to get rid of and their power over our saga, our medicine men. The power of our saga diminished, and then but our people wanted to record them, and so what they did is they carved images of the saga, the medicine men, on how they were in their ceremonial regalia, and while they were still with our people. And so, that was, but anyways, I was talking about the argillite. Okay, we'll go on to the next question.
Christian, I was looking today over, we've had a few text chats over the years, and I was looking at one from 2 or 3 years ago when you told me that you thought you were going to be doing less argillite carving and more other kinds of stone or metal sculpture. Did that work out, or are you still doing as much argillite as you were?
Well, like if you look, I'll be having a new book coming out September 20th, and it has 50 years of my carving in there, 50 years. And during the first 30 years, I was carving an incredible amount of sculptures and totem poles, panel pipes, plates. I'd carve maybe up to 10 or more per year of good size ones, and then also bracelets, and then medallions, and silver and gold, and other materials, and so now I'm doing maybe one or two pieces per year of an argillite, and that's because I'm carving the monumental totem poles more often, and ceremonial masks, and the bent cedar boxes, and so yeah, it's just the natural progression, I guess. I've kind of backed off of the commercial art galleries, and I had the exhibition at the Bill Reed Gallery, included my apprentices, several of my apprentices, and then also family members in the exhibition, even though it was stated as a solo. I felt it would be more appropriate to include them in this one at that moment. Yeah, this show just finally closed after a year at the Bill Reed Gallery. We went there for the closing day ceremonies and book signing. And so another book coming out in September, like I said, a larger book with more argillite carvings. So yeah, I'm not carving as many, but I am carving some significant pieces right now. A large argillite chest with multiple figures emerging from each side and around the base, and then the lid. And so, and another aga, a shaman sculpture. And a number of other pieces are kind of lined up along my counter there for whenever I'm inspired.
Paul and Helen, did you want to ask your question about that, the large clan pole?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, really great talk, Christian. Thank you very much. You were standing in front of the really large clan pole on one of the very first slides, maybe the first image, and you described 10 feet of it being underground. And so the question was that pole was raised by the community with the chains and the ropes and sliding it down in
no chains. Yes, there was no chains, but there was three 600-foot rope going off over the roof. So three 600-foot ropes, and then two 600-foot ropes going to the front. So on each of those ropes was approximately 100 people. And so close to about 500 people raising the pole, plus some men giving an initial push. And it raised up very smoothly. And I had actually engineered everything to go very smoothly that way. And it was probably the most beautiful weather you could imagine for the raising. You can see the Yakulanus totem pole raising on YouTube. If anybody wants to take a look at YouTube, Yakulanus pole raising, and you'll see some footage of that, and other connected films will be on there close by too. So, yes.
All right. Thank you for that.
Any other questions?
Yes, we had a question about the final slide. Someone had asked if, at Skangwe, if the totem pole that you're standing in front of was hit by lightning.
I don't think so. But what happened was, this was back in the day. I can't really say exactly how it happened, but there was a fire that went through the part of the village. This would have been back in the 1880s or so, kind of during the sealing days. So there was no residents living there at the time. And so all the people would have been off, like living in Skidegate or wherever, or else they would have been off doing whatever they were doing. But the story goes that there was a seal hunting ship that landed there, and they had other tribal peoples there, and they had set up camp in one of the longhouses, and somehow the fire, their campfire got away on them, and it burnt through part of the town. And so you'll see several totem poles, mortuaries standing throughout that part of town that had gone through the fire. And so this, like I said, over 140, 150 years ago, I'm not exactly sure, but that's what happened. Yeah. We do get lightning occasionally here on Haida Gwaii, but not too often. Not very often. When I go through the forests, I could see, and where there wasn't natural or wasn't fires, I could see where there was the trees that had been struck by lightning. So it's, but it doesn't happen very often here on Haida Gwaii. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then one last question from the chat was if there are any opportunities for people to visit and watch and learn from carvers like yourself on Haida Gwaii.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have visitors coming here all the way through, different parts of the year, but mainly between May and the beginning of May to the end of September. That's where most of our visitors come through. We have the National Geographic Lindblad visits. They'll be coming through here in late April and May, early May, and then again in September. Early September, mid-September. And so we have, but people can schedule, they can look under Kihl'Yahdas.ca. I wish I had the TLUU.
I could put it in the chat. Yeah.
And AY .ca. It's our website, and there'll be some more information on there. And so, yes. Other ways, other interest in our artwork. Much of what you see in here is all just part of our collection, and it's not for sale. It's just for ceremonial use. But my longhouse is getting quite full, so we will have pieces for sale in the near future. But it's like everything is new to us, even after the 27, I don't know how many years of teaching young people. And I have never wanted to give up any of their first works, and I really want to hang on to as much as I can here. And but we are making some for commissions and for sale in the future too. But we have to keep going somehow. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Well, I just want to thank you again for this wonderful presentation. We've had so many notes of gratitude in the chat that I'll make sure to share with you. We are a little past time, so thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Yeah.
I'd just make one more comment.
Absolutely.
We have a number of projects working on this year. If you make it up to Haida Gwaii, we have a couple of totem poles, 32 foot each, and then Manda sculpture, one that we're going to unveil, and another one we're going to be starting. And plus, we're moving the totem pole out to the West Coast in September or maybe late August, and that'll be so creating our own kind of destination, I guess. And there'll be a cabin, a couple of cabins going out there, and eventually a traditional Haida house there. And we're looking into having more things online too, with and doing a lot of recording, a lot of the history stories that I was told while I was growing up. And so I'm looking forward to this coming year. Hoa Lingwadwan
Yes.
off Kilag. Hoa.
It's Hawa to you.
Hawa.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
How
Mhm.
Christian? How
Hoa. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Hoa. Mhm.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Mhm.
Have a wonderful evening.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you both. Thank you, Christian.
Anga. Anga.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you all too.